a riot at the Dog Park Studios. It's Live with Johnny. And now, here's Johnny.
Good Sunday afternoon, everybody. Here's the hoping the Dolphins are going to win that game. Today we have a special, what I'm calling a special early election interview. And just before we get to our guest, I just want to give a short little monologue here. One part of what we do here at Live with Johnny is not just the nonsense and the silliness and all that goofy stuff that we do, but I bring attention to good things and I bring attention to things that interest me, hence the name Live with Johnny. I like to talk about good people, I like to talk about good things, and I like to spend my time on this show with those types of people. So a lot of questions have been asked about my guest today, and you know, John, you're not political. John, you're not this, you're not that. Well, again, it's Live with Johnny, and I could be whatever I want to be. And I like a good human interest story, and I like good people. So what I did was I reached out to a gentleman who I would like to spend 30 minutes with talking to and getting to know better. I am a resident of Naugatuck, and I am someone who has a little bit of skin in the game because I'll be part of the people who are voting for these particular people. But again, I am someone who likes a good story. I'm someone who likes a good person. I'm not going to keep repeating that. If you watch this show and you know where I'm at with that, you know that I end the show the same way every single time. And I tell everybody that the three most important words in the English language are, how are you? And I think we can all learn a lot from that. I know I have. So without further ado, and without having to explain myself any further, I'm going to talk for the next 30 to 40 minutes to a good man, a smart man, and somebody I'd like to know more about. So first things first, sir, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks for the kind words. And just so your audience knows, we have never met, maybe in passing to say hi, but it's a pleasure to be on your show.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we see each other at the Naugatuck football games, I think a total of 2 times. So we were not exactly what we would call fast friends, but we are, I can tell you, someone who I think I appreciate you, and I think I kind of admire your resilience. So to the people watching, if you came here to see me beat a dead horse or any of that nonsense, you can not worry about that because I'm not doing that. Sir, I'm not going to bring up anything we don't need to bring up because where I come from, I don't beat a man while he's down. I put my hand out and I pick him up. So with that being said, big day coming Tuesday. Lots of stuff going on. But more importantly, 20 years of service to the town of Naugatuck. And you've lived there your entire life. You've coached probably half of the guys, if not all of the people that I know and hang out with. Tell me a little bit about your passion just for Naugatuck in general, just because you spent your entire life there.
Well, I've been very active in the community. I've practiced law for 37 years, been the probate judge for 20. But I've been president of the Exchange Club. I've been on the board of directors of the Red Cross Latchkey Kid program, also board of directors of the Exchange Club. As you alluded to, I coached with my brother Dave for 15 plus years in Little Pal basketball. And for those of you that don't know, that is a volunteer position. I'll tell you a quick story. One time we were coaching, the kids were screwing around. And my brother Dave works out in New York, and they were screwing around and jumping off chairs. And I had to go to the bathroom trying to dunk it. And it's like, Dave came in, he said, this is ridiculous. He said, what we are here to help you guys. What do you think we get for doing this job? And one of the kids raised his hand and said, 50,000. and then one of the other kids said, no, it's only part-time. I think they get 25,000. And we said, do you realize we get nothing? And the kids their eyes, they couldn't believe that we put up with all the garbage over all the years and we didn't get compensated at all. And of course, we don't care. We volunteer our time for a lot of events, but it was surprising that they actually all thought that we got paid.
Well, that's because, and I can speak from experience myself with being a volunteer at Peter J. Foley, a lot of kids don't see their moms or dads or grandma or grandpas helping out, so they're probably thinking the same thing. And when they find out that we're just doing it because I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but because we're good people, we love sports and we love kids. And I'm sure it's a lot, very surprising a lot of times. Even my nephew said a couple of times, I'm like, not only are you my nephew, I have to coach you and I got to put up with you. But, that's,
Well,
I love
my,
it.
my parents always did a lot of volunteer work, and my father coached for a long time. And he did get paid when he coached the high school team, but not all the years he did Little Pal. And he did a great job. And I'm very proud of the fact that they named the gymnasium after him, the Edward Mariano Gymnasium.
Yeah. And that's pretty cool. And your brother Dave, who I do know a little bit as well, more than I know you. Yeah, I heard that story, and I also at one point I was going to interview the Naugatuck High School football coach, Coach Anderson. We never got together because he's just a very busy man. But so I said to somebody, I got to get with somebody who's really gonna. And the first thing they told me is get either Dave or Pete Mariano. They're like Naugatuck encyclopedias. If you want to know something about the town of Naugatuck and the sports, just go to these two guys. But unfortunately, I never got that chance.
My nephew, John Mariano, was the head coach at Woodland, and his assistant was Chris Anderson. And Chris's son played on the team. And so we know them very well also.
Fantastic.
And my nephew just left the job after 4 or 5 years. He just had his first baby. I'm very proud of he and his wife. And they're putting all their efforts into that now.
It's a beautiful thing. And then next thing you know, they're, old and grown up like mine. I have a son. He's going to be 23 in this month. Oh, my God, it's November already. In 2 weeks, he's going to be 23. Stepson's going to be 12. And I think I'm hitting 30 at some point this year. I'm not sure which. Yeah, please.
I hit 62, so I don't want to hear about it.
I'll be 46 in April. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, John, you look great for your age. And I'd say, sir, you're lying. Let's jump in.
You could see me. All I see is Ryan at the dog park.
Oh, well. He can't see. Well,
He doesn't see it a lot.
he might be doing you a service, sir, by not seeing me.
We might not have set up the camera right.
Oh, great. Can the people?
I did see you before, though, and you do not look that old.
Thank you. Can you say that again so I can have that isolated and recorded? Probate judge for 20 years.
Yes.
You cover the towns of Beacon Falls, Middlebury, Naugatuck, and Prospect. Did I get that right?
Now I can see you.
There you go.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So
put the other screen up.
Yeah. Go away. Put it back.
so probate judge / comedian. I see. I got you. So I'm right? It's just the 4 towns?
Yes.
All right.
When I started 20 years ago, it was just Naugatuck and Beacon Falls. And 8 years into it, they added, when I started, there were 117 probate courts in the state, and they consolidated it to 54. So now there's only 54 in the entire state. My district has about 55,000 people in it.
Fantastic. And when I spoke to you this morning, as we did what we would call somewhat of a pre-interview, they had you shuffled around from town to town to town. Do you feel like herded cattle at that point and just going out and waving and people beeping at you?
I think that the people should see the candidate and the supporters, and it's important. And although I'm very well known in Naugatuck, and I certainly think well known in the other towns, but not as much.
Yeah.
If you didn't have probate cases with me, you might not know who your probate judge is. I've said a lot of times, I say, well, 90% of the people who have come to my probate court will vote for me. But a lot of people have never been to the probate court. I'm very proud of the work that I have done over the 20 years, but I have to give most of the credit to my staff. They're outstanding. They work very hard. We unfortunately, and I've mentioned this before, we do not have a union. And so the statute for probate judges says that you serve at the pleasure of the judge. So if a new judge were to come in, I have 4 employees, the new judge could get rid of all of them. And so I feel a lot of pressure for them. I'm old enough that I could retire and get my pension at 62, but I would be devastated if they would lose their job. Some of them, none of them are close to getting their pension, and only 2 are actually eligible. 2 of them aren't even vested, so they would, just have to go work somewhere else. Well, so I feel
that's the worst part about these elections. Not the worst part, but you not only you're basically, for better of lack of term, you're an employer, and you have these employees below you, and if you don't succeed, they don't succeed. And
Right.
and
And I've tried to talk to them, and they have tried to get a union in with the state, and hopefully, State Senator Cabrera, I know, presented a bill this year, and it didn't end up going through. He was one of the sponsors, but um, they really are trying to get a union in. We're not local employees. People don't understand that. We actually have just moved to a building on the other side of the green, and it was going on for a couple of years, and we tried to do everything as quick as we can, but there's a lot of regulations with the state and the board of mayor. We had nothing to do with it, the probate court, but the board of mayor and burgesses and the other towns worked out a lease agreement, and there was work that had to be done, and but we're finally are in there.
fantastic. Well, I can say this. You say not a lot of people know who their probate judge is. So I can say that I knew who you were, but I didn't know much about you. So, of course, asking you to do this, I reached out. I want to throw some words at you. And I got to tell you, anybody watching this, I didn't just go to a couple of pages. I skimmed and skimmed and skimmed many things, many people. I heard the words empathy and competence. Every single person who spoke about you used those two words. And I would go ahead and I would say that those might be the two most important things that you need to have in your toolbox, maybe doing your job. And you could tell me I'm wrong because I've never done your job, but I'm thinking empathy and competence. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, everyone has told me in my life that, and I do have flaws just like everybody else does, but I am a very emotional and empathetic person. My ex-wife and daughter, they'd come home and they're like, "Don't tell me you're watching Secretariat again," because I'm sitting there bawling. Watching Lifetime Movie Network. I'm sitting there with tears in my eyes. I'm like, "Dad, really?"
I was going to say that your daughter did. I didn't want to throw out. She used the words "his waterworks," and I was like, "Uh-oh." I'm going to try to make Pete cry today.
Just all you have to do is talk about my daughter, and I will. But she is the love of my life, and she's coming in from Boston. I'm picking her up tomorrow, and she's going to stay at the house, and she's going to be there on election day for me, and staying over Tuesday, and then I bring her back to Northeastern. She's in her third year at Northeastern.
So she's a lot smarter than me.
She is a lot smarter than me.
What you've just showed me there was the other word that people use about you. You're a humble guy. You're a super humble guy, and I could see it because I could almost see in your face where if I want to talk about your daughter for the next 25 minutes, you'll glowingly do so. I almost feel like if I want to talk about you for the next 25 minutes, you're like, we could bring up something else. But I think, another big word, and I'm going to steal this one, apolitical service, which both sides of the fence, both parties, I should say, when you are doing your job, it doesn't matter where they're coming from, who they're coming from, or how they got there. You are as fair can be, and again, you're just a humble, competent guy. And go ahead.
The apolitical service, I personally believe the position should be appointed like all the other judgeships. I'm told as a judge, when I got in 20 years ago, you cannot be political. You cannot be on a town committee in a high position there. You cannot have a lawn sign for anybody. You cannot, because of your position, you can't publicly endorse or publicly oppose a candidate. You can't write a letter to the editor on behalf of someone for or against. So there's all these requirements, and then all of a sudden somebody decides to run against you, and it's like, now you have to be political. And I'm running against someone who is quite political, and she's been a state rep for a long time, and so she has a lot of political connections. And me, I've just been the judge, and they tell you not to be political, and then you're thrust into a situation where you have to start lobbying for votes and being political. And so I have always felt that it should be it is a non-political position. But even holding up signs, some people say, "What party are you?" And it's like, "Well, Democrat." No, I'm not voting for it. And it's like, no one's asked me in 20 years what party I'm in. Yeah. And prior to this time, I've been a Republican for the entire time. But having lost the primary, I switched to a Democrat because I felt that it's up to all of the people in the 4 towns to decide who their next probate judge, not just the limited number of registered Republicans. The unaffiliated, which are the largest group, and the Democrats wouldn't have a say on who their next judge is. So that's why I opted to be on a ballot to run. But I had been a Republican for the last 40 years. So,
listen, and it's got to be tough for you because now you're thrown into this fight. I don't want to call it a fight, but you're thrown into this world where you're going to get raked over the coals. People are going to, they're going to weaponize your issues against you. Rather than just say, listen, I want to do this as judge, and he's going to do this as judge, and boopity bop. People like to, strike a person when they're down and all that nonsense, and it just makes no sense. But you are a super accountant, and again, I've talked to. You have no idea the amount of things I've read and the people I've talked to, and I even had this idea before I contacted you, but I was going back and forth on it about doing a political thing. But you'd
asked earlier about empathy, which I answered, but with regard to competence and experience, my position is there is no substitute for experience. I'm a much better judge now than I was 20 years ago. I've done 20,000 cases in my court. I've done everything. I know I have a judicial temperament. I have the knowledge and the experience. And nobody else in the 4 towns has that type of experience because none of them have been a judge. And in Naugatuck, for the past 50 years, there's been 2 judges. Bob Suzdak, the late Bob Suzdak, was a friend of mine, and myself. And they keep it in because they want someone who has the experience to run the court. My opponent not only doesn't have any judge experience, she has little or no probate experience. I've looked and people have looked up. She averages about 1 probate case a year. That's what she does. She's running strictly on my personal issues. She doesn't dispute. She doesn't do any probate. I'm friendly with 4 of the local judges in Shelton and Waterbury and Southbury and Ansonia. And they say, Pete, we don't even know who she is. She doesn't do any probate. I know what she does in my court, which is little or nothing. There's a lot of experienced probate certified lawyers who could run for judge. She's not one of them. She has little or no experience. Obviously, her only issue is my past from a year and a half ago that she has played up daily. And frankly, filed so many complaints. Half the people in my campaign just laugh about them now. But it's a vicious cycle for someone to every single thing we do, a complaint is filed, and none of them are warranted. None of them have any basis in fact at all. But she just does it hoping to maybe push me and my campaign down a little more. So she thinks I'm low enough as it is, push me down under the ground.
And that's part of what
judicial temperament that should be a probate judge.
I was just going to say that. Second thing I was going to say is, and that's what gravitated me towards you and your story, as gentlemen who you fell and you picked yourself back up. And again, I'm not going to dissect it because unfortunately that stuff you and your family had to endure enough of that in the last especially the last 4 months, and I find it to be insulting to a voter who tell me how he's done his job, tell me what he means to the community, and tell me what his record is. Don't tell me he made a mistake, because if you find me the person who says they're perfect or don't make mistakes, I'll show you the very first liar. So, and again, that's not me picking a side. I'm picking the side of humanity, obviously. I want to circle back to everything you just said, your wife and your ex-wife and your daughter. First of all, your daughter's letter about you and the things that there was a video posted on Friday that a lot of people have seen. I think it's over a few thousand views. When your daughter speaks, she's not just like, I want my dad to be elected. Your daughter speaks like she wishes every girl had a father like that, and she wishes that everybody could have a probate judge like that. And you could really see the passion that she is sharing about you, and that speaks volumes of you. It speaks volumes of what your children will say about you, And I'm sure you're a super proud father. But I think what I found is you got a very proud daughter over there.
I am extremely proud of my daughter. And besides, I hear the comment, she's so pretty, she should be a model. And it's like, don't tell me that.
Right.
She's very smart and she's very nice. And as many comments as I get about my daughter, believe it or not, I got just as many comments about my ex-wife, that people were saying, wow, I can't believe your ex-wife is doing all this for you.
Sir, first of all,
you. And she's my friend, and she's been my friend for 35-ish years, and we share the most important person in our life. And you know, I'll before I start tearing up, I'm not going to. I will tell you a little story. Mayor Hess, who's a very good friend of mine, he said, Pete, you got to do something on Facebook. And I didn't do anything during the primary. And he said, you got to get a video of you or your mom. And my mom did write a really nice letter on my page, as my daughter did. And so he said, he sent these people over and he said, they'll do a video for you. So they set it up in my house. They had the light over here and they had the camera all set. And they had my ex-wife was in New Jersey. They had her on for 15 minutes and they had my daughter in Boston on for 15 virtually. And then they gave me about a half an hour. And after my wife and daughter, I said, you know what? They were so good. I don't even think you need me. No. Of course we're going to do you. And I did a half an hour. And when the tape came out, the entire tape was my ex-wife and my daughter. That me paid for it. And I'm like, okay.
Well, listen, and I think it worked. And I will say this: we live in a society where, you know, the word ex-wife or ex-husband or ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend doesn't ring well with people.
Right.
You want to talk about character. You want to talk. You got a gentleman has his ex-wife on camera telling the people what a great job he has done and will do, and what a compassionate, nice person he is. For your ex-wife to throw these things out, you're doing something right. So I think that speaks to your character. Because listen, we can go door to door right now, 100 guys, and ask them what their ex-wives say about them. We're not gonna be able to put it on TV. So
right.
for you to be able to be able to do that, sorry, I think that speaks volumes to your character. And honestly, I don't think they needed you in that video.
No.
I think it came out so well. I've watched it myself at least 10 times. And our Zoom meeting is going to end in 10 minutes, which is perfect. But I just want to give you that heads up there. But I want to say a quote from your ex-wife that when I first saw the video, I read the quote, I watched the video again, I read the quote, and then I shared it to my page because I thought it was phenomenal. And your ex-wife, I got to take my glasses off here. Her quote is, "Don't dismiss 20 years of great service for 30 days of weakness." How powerful does one sentence ever have to be? And I think she summed it up perfectly. And when you win this election, you send her some long stem roses and tell her thank you for that statement, because it's $1 billion statement. It really is.
I talk to her all the time. I'm very proud of her. And she's an extremely nice, loving mom and wife. And she went to Brown University, Ivy League educated. She went to law school. She practiced for a little bit. She's now a executive assistant at the Seaford and Associates, which is a local firm, and they've been wonderful to her. And she's the hardest working person that I've ever seen, and she's just really genuine. And fortunately, my daughter takes after her too.
Well, listen, 20 years of service, she's gotten a little something from you as well. I'm just looking at my notes here to make sure I didn't miss anything. I mean, listen, I could talk to you for like 10 hours, but I want to give you the floor, right? Part of me wanting to do this with you is I wanted people to know where you're at today, the success story that you truly are today. You've endured, you've overcome all the good stuff, all the Rocky Balboa isms I can throw at you right now. But I was interested in, I don't want to focus on the bad. I want to focus on the pickup. And you've picked yourself up. You dusted yourself off. You've have a ton of what I would call community leverage, or not leverage, political. I got the wrong word stuck out of my head. But I think you've earned the right to continue to serve our community and to continue to be the person that you've been. So before I can babble on for hours, let's pretend you only had a few minutes, and let's pretend every person that's going to have to step in that tent, pull the cape back, and vote on Tuesday. Why should they vote for you? What is it you want them to know that you want to help them make that decision?
I think that people that have been to my court know that it is well run. I look through my numbers, and it's a public record who donates to my campaign and to my opponent's campaign. And I have probably 95 to 98% of the lawyers in the 4 towns that are with me. And they're with me because they know that I have the experience, that I have the judicial temperament, and that I've done a really good job in the court. And most importantly, that my staff has a lot of experience, and they're very pleasant to the public. And that's the court that's going to be there. And if I'm not fortunate enough to be reelected, they're going to have a whole new judge, someone who I certainly feel does not have the temperament to be a judge, carries a lot of anger with her. Just look at all her posts. And that is not the type of person, and has no probate experience. And I'm afraid that if she doesn't get rid of all 4 of them, she'll get rid of a couple, and the other ones won't even want to be there. So there's a very strong possibility in January she'll be in there and have to hire 4 new people. And that's just a fact. And I think that the people who've had experiences in the court and have know that we're very competent, and I've gotten many people who the lawyers say, you have the best court in the state. Your matters get out so quickly. And I also want to, I had a clerk who worked there for 48 years, Patty Alleggi, who was outstanding. And she taught myself included and all of the staff what to do. She had more experience. She would get judges, and particularly lawyers. Lawyers will call all the time from other areas just to talk to her, say, what do you think about this? Have you had this before? She had that much experience, and there is no substitute for experience. And I remember once John Gasper, the ex-fire chief, he said, Pete, why don't we ever hear anything about the probate court? And I said, that's a good thing. That means it's run really well. He said, you're right.
I'm glad you said that, because that came up in an article too. And then someone actually was quoted. It might have even been you. I don't know. I'm telling you, I skimmed through so much stuff. But it said, the reason you don't hear about our courtroom or about is because we don't, we're doing such a good job that, there's nothing crazy going on here.
Until this election, there's never been anything in the newspaper about the court or the staff or anything else. We've just been thrust into a negative campaigning situation from the get-go regarding my driving issues, regarding my alcohol issues, and just the thing that it's so beneath the dignity of a judge. It's shocking to me. And putting videos up, going to her friend at the Hartford Courant and having him put blogs he must have done 20 blogs about me. And so outrageous. He's never talked to me. He's never met me. And going to the TV station the night before the primary and giving them videos of my arrests from a year and a half ago. That is just despicable, in my opinion. And if that's who the people decide they want as their next probate judge, well, then I have to obviously live by it.
But, being in the spotlight and being where you're at real quick, it's got to drive you crazy. And not just your opponent, but even the people who maybe support her or even don't support her, but just like to, dogpile on bad news. The comments of all the people and, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. I'm a straight shooter. It sucks that people all of a sudden think they all have some moral high ground, that these people are all perfect and without sin and without all this nonsense. And on Facebook, they could all be a political genius or a medical genius when it comes to COVID. Now you're in an elected position. It's got to drive you crazy that these people could just grab their keyboard and say whatever they want, and all of a sudden it's true. It drives me nuts.
I know. It's part of politics, which is, as I said earlier, I don't believe the judgeship should be political and shouldn't be voted on. But in fact, it is. They've talked about changing it. They've talked about it being appointed by the governor, like all the other judgeships are. And hopefully someday they will. But right now, you have to go through the political process. And unfortunately for me and my campaign and my family, and my mom and my daughter and all of my siblings and friends that it has been the worst mudslinging by Rosa Rabimbus that any campaign has ever done that I've ever seen. Certainly a probate judge campaign.
Well,
and,
sorry.
You know,
I think the good thing is that the time I spend around town and the people that I've spoken to, not just your brother or your nephew or your nephews or friends of people, this is right hand. I don't know if people can see my right hand. I don't know where the camera is. People of no one I've spent time with or spoken to, and I'm around a lot, and I go to a lot of places. They just have nothing but, good things to say about you and your entire family, which to me says volumes, right? Because it's a trickle-down effect. And your mother's letter says it all and trickles down from your mom to your brother to your nephews to the people they're married to, all this stuff, your daughter, your ex-wife. I think it speaks volumes that this is the position you want a good person in. These are position you want empathetic and experience. We throw the word experience around. Everything points to you being the right guy and a good guy. And we're down to about a minute left, and I got to wrap it up. So I want to just say to you, thank you very much for coming on here.
Well, nice meeting you, and thank you for having me.
I'm rooting for you. I'm not afraid to tell people because I got a big mouth. I'm pulling a lever for Pete Mariano. And that's, and listen, it is what it is. But I got to know, the one other question I got to ask you, are you a Buffalo Bills fan as well?
My uncle Don Zender was a huge Giant fan, and he had season tickets, and I used to go to all the games with him. Not all of them, but my two nephews, who both, by the way, one was a lawyer and the other was a state employee, and they both died from alcoholism in their 50s, and I was very close to them.
So, I don't listen. I don't
my
want.
My uncle brought us to the games. They had 45-yard line seats.
Nice
at the stadium, and I was always a Giant fan. But my brother Dave, and there's hardly any of them now. There's probably more.
There is.
As biggest diehard Buffalo fan you could ever imagine.
We are going to,
and now all his kids are.
We're going to lose you in like the next 20 seconds. I just want to say good luck, and sir, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope to speak to you very soon.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
We appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.
Keep me live. We still live? Are we still live?
We're still live.
All right. I just want to say thank you again to Mr. Mariano, and I just want to end it with this. I'm already getting text messages.
I just want to say, don't ask another question when there's 1 minute left.
I know.
Jesus.
I don't know how to not stop talking. I'm going to say this.
1 minute.
I'm just going to say real quick.
Okay.
I want people to know that it's okay if you think differently than other people. I want people to know it's okay if you are going to vote for somebody other than who I'm going to vote for. We can still be friends. We can still care and love about each other. I just, I think the divide, everybody likes to throw that word divide around. I don't think it's the biggest divide we've had is everybody thinks they either have to be left or they have to be right. I'm going to tell you, we all just got to be nice to each other. And I don't want to get in some kumbaya moment. But I want everybody to know who may be thinking differently than me today, it's okay. I love you. It's perfectly okay. And I hope that you still love me. I'm a fan of a good story. I'm a fan of a good person. And I believe that's what I just showed today. And I believe that's where, I like the guy. So be it. I wish him luck. And more importantly than in politics, I wish him well in life. He's killing it. He's doing a great job. He picked himself up. He dusted himself off. Life is good. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for everybody for tuning in today. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled time tomorrow night at 7:30 with Jordan Marie live music. Thanks again to Judge Mariano. Bright eyes, I'm coming home. I hope you're all doing well. Remember, text somebody. Ask them, how are you? We'll see you tomorrow.